Hello there. It's me, Technical Difficulties James. Just stopping by to throw some technical difficulties into the mix of this episode. What kind of technical difficulties, you ask? Oh, I don't know. Maybe deleting Jane's side of the conversation so James and Jane have to record the whole conversation again on a different day. That'll be fun, won't it? Oh, and sure, James managed to record the Zoom call, but I jumped in there as well and stopped the internet from working. And of course, when the internet came back online, James forgot to press the record button. All the technical difficulties in one episode. Aren't I clever? Oi, what are you doing at the microphone? Oh, nothing. I was just... Whatever. I don't really care. Back in your cage. Come on. No, stop. Oh, fine. Until next time. Yeah, until next time, whatever. Oh, wow. Okay. So, looking at this episode, it's a bit of a mess. So, I'm probably going to have to jump in every now and then to kind of explain what's going on. So, look forward to that. So, why don't we roll the intro and then I'll be right back. Here we go. Hello. Welcome to Broadway and Other Kiwi Dreams, a weekly podcast exploring the lives and minds of theatre practitioners in and around the New Zealand performing arts industry. I'm your host, James Shera. Today, I am joined by a creative, a storyteller, and a songstress, Jane Leonard. Jane has been performing from a very young age, even attending a performing arts preschool, which I did not even know existed. Since then, she has gone on to pursue a fruitful performing career, including starring as one of the most iconic roles in music theatre history, Elphaba. Jane joins the podcast to talk about her experience with Wicked. She details the events and shows of her Nasda years, and we also dive into the deep end to talk about mental health and Black Lives Matter. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy a conversation with Jane on Broadway and Other Kiwi Dreams. So were you into theatre as a kid?
Yes, I started ballet when I was 3.
Right.
I started singing lessons when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my first, it was Mid-Canterbury Children's Theatre in Ashburton. But my first show was when I was 6. It was called What Are Fairy Tales For? And I played a little Snow White.
What a question.
I know. What are fairy tales for? And then, I started like speech and drama and piano when I was 8 years old. So I was very much thrust into performing arts. Oh, and I went to a performing arts preschool as well.
Wow.
So I did half the week in Ashburton at a Montessori and then half the week at Mozart's, which is a performing arts preschool in Christchurch. So from day dot, my mother took me up to Christchurch for half the week to go to this performing arts preschool, which is amazing.
Yeah, what was that preschool? Do you remember much of going to that preschool?
Yep. I remember the first day I went, within the first 10 minutes, they got me to, because not only are they performing arts, but they're also, preschool.
Yeah.
So, the bubble thing, how you used to do the bubble thing with the paint. So you use bubble detergent with paint to create bubbly art.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
However, I knew that you had to blow into it, but I was, 3 at the time, and I remember it, so it's ingrained in there. Yeah. And I sucked it up. So I drank the detergent and I cried my little eyes out. So that was my first memory of that place. But other than that, singing, dancing, wearing costumes, there was this giant pirate ship, which when I look at photos of it now, it wasn't actually giant, but at the time it was huge.
Yeah, that's always the case, when you're a kid.
And there was a donkey that came because we did a nativity play and I played Mary. And there was a donkey, and the donkey came inside and pooped. I remember that.
A real donkey?
Yeah, and I also remember getting pushed off the donkey by the kid who was playing Joseph. He'd always pick on me, and he'd literally push me off the donkey. He's like, Mary, see you later. Like, fuck off.
Trouble in paradise for that couple.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of, I guess, rooted this thought of storytelling and what you can do with storytelling. So, yeah, that was Mozart's. Shout out.
Shout out to Mozart.
Shout out to Felicity, who was the head of Mozart's. She's cool.
Did you perform all through childhood and like teenage years as well?
Yep. So Mid-Canterbury Children's Theatre, I did that from when I was 6 till 17. I think there was only maybe 1 year where I didn't do a musical, but I did that. I did Mid-Canterbury Summer Singing School, basically that whole time as well. I never got to do a musical at school, however, at high school, because I went to Burnside, and if you were in the specialist music program or in the choirs, because of your commitment to the choirs and everything, you weren't allowed to do the musical when I was there.
Interesting.
So that kind of sucked a bit, but I did musicals outside of that.
Right.
So yeah, with the children's theatre. And then when I was 16, I did Les Mis in Ashburton, and that was with Variety Theatre in Ashburton, which used to be Ashburton Operatic, and I played Cosette, and that kind of was like my first big musical.
Yeah, sure.
And then it just began.
It hasn't stopped.
Growing and it hasn't stopped. Thank God. Yeah. Well, yeah, it hasn't. And you know, I'm very privileged to say that, actually, when I think about it.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. Blessed. Hashtag blessed. Oh, gross. Can't believe I just said that. Cut that out. Oh.
Absolutely not. Another question is, what is your dream role to play that you haven't played already?
Yeah, see, this is a really hard one.
That's why I sent it to you.
I know, but like, seriously, I've been thinking about this like for a whole week. One of my top roles is that I really want to play is Carole King in Beautiful, because I play piano and I love Carole King and I love her style of singing. I love her folky rawness and I love her story, which will probably bring us to another question. But like Elphaba, she wasn't ever a dream role for me.
Right.
Until I played her. I didn't understand her, and I don't think I even understood the musical properly, because it was such like this commercial musical, this blockbuster of a musical, that really overshadows actually the purpose and the story and what such a beautiful character that is Elphaba and how much I relate to her. And I learned that through playing it. I mean, obviously I wanted to audition because it was Wicked and Elphaba. What a fantastic role, but it was never a role that I really, really, really wanted to play until I played it, which is buzzy.
And I guess like that probably wouldn't have been on many people's radar of what would be possible to do in New Zealand until the premiere of Wicked happened in Christchurch, which we were a part of.
That too. I think when I was younger, obviously the roles of like Christine Daae and Mary Poppins, and because growing up I trained classically, did musical theatre as well, but that was my main thing, and Mum always pushed for me to be an opera singer. And she still always asks like, oh, why don't you use your real voice? And I'm like, what is my real voice? Like, I don't really think that my soprano classical sound is my real voice, but she always loves to hear me sing that way.
Fair enough.
Yeah, each to their own, eh? But they were my dream roles when I was younger. But now God damn your questions. They're not questions that surprise you either, but they're the questions that you avoid yourself because they're just too hard.
Yeah, they're too introspective and deep.
But the characters that I want to play that I haven't played are those characters that are edgy and gritty and have something to say, are really strong female roles.
Sure.
You know what? I'm going to put it out there, Maureen. I was really... My heart broke when our season was cancelled. because I was so pumped.
That's the season of Rent, for those who don't know.
Yes, it's the court theatre. Yeah, that was a role that I was really, really wanting to get into and get on the floor with that and play with it. Like, because when I was younger, even throughout my first initial years at Nasda and throughout the first initial years of my career, I honestly didn't believe in myself.
Mm-hmm.
I judged everything that I did. It was a self-saboteur inside my head, constantly judging me. And it didn't give me the ability to play and to explore and to just have fun. I was always so in my head about the technique.
Where do you think that came from?
Honestly, just an issue with self-belief,
mm-hmm.
an issue with self-confidence. I've done so many awesome things in my life. And when I think about those things, I'm like, why for so long did you hold yourself back? It honestly is just a question of just self-worth and self-confidence. I just didn't have it. It didn't exist in me. That has a lot to do with my own mental health journey, having depression and anxiety and growing and becoming older and learning. I'm really grateful now where I am with my mental health, because it's enabled my creativity to go beyond what I ever had before. Being able to play with a role is so much fun. That's the gift, to be able to play with it and to be able to share that in the rehearsal room, in the space, create, and then share that with an audience, and that relationship. That's the magic. And I'm really sad that I let that self-saboteur get in the way of that process for so long.
Sure. I think it's really inspiring for young girls, especially your story of overcoming that mental health and overcoming all those challenges and still getting to where you are today. I think it's really inspiring.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
And in saying that, all the, trauma and mental health and all that stuff that I've been through, it fuels and it fills this like pool of knowledge that I can grab out of as an actor, and it makes me a better actor, and it makes me continue to work hard. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Love you.
Love you too. Speaking of something that we love, segue, just trying to segue into the next thing. Nasda.
Oh, Nasda. Yes, Nasda. Let's talk about Nasda.
Let's talk about Nasda.
National Academy of Singing and Dramatic Art.
Yes, of course. In doing this podcast this is the 11th or 12th episode, I found it really interesting to talk to people that have also gone to Nasda and to find out their experiences as they compare to others. So how was your experience with Nasda?
Okay, here we go. My experience at Nasda was transformative in many ways.
Sure.
Firstly, the whānau that I have
definitely
from Nasda, not only within a tutor base, but within the people in my year group and around my year group, and you and the years below, and this kind of alumni that we create.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That collective within Nasda is really awesome, because we have a very small musical theatre industry in New Zealand. So it's amazing that we have that community.
Yeah.
So that in itself, I mean, my year group, as you know, we are so close and we are all best friends, and we will be best friends till the end. That in itself, fills my heart with joy. Secondly, I was lucky enough to be in a time at Nasda when there wasn't a lot of movement between tutors. We had the same tutors for 3 years. We had Stephen Ross, who really gave me the tools that I use in everything that I do.
Yeah.
Steph Ross and Richard, Juliet, in the nicest way possible, trying to articulate this. It wasn't as disruptive as maybe some other years would have been. And not disruptive in a negative way, it just happened. It happens in every institution. You have teachers leaving and coming and going and doing their own mahi, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky in the 3 years that I had.
Yeah.
Because I know with some other students' experience, it hasn't been the same. And within the 3 years of being there, the year above and the year below and so on and so forth, we're so accommodating and they were so kind and nurturing. And my year was also the year of the earthquake, the 2011 earthquake.
Yeah, was that first year?
Yep. So it was our second week.
Wow.
And on that Tuesday, was it Tuesday? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
There's a group of us that were going to go to Cashel Mall to get $2 rice from the arcade, which is now gone. Or maybe it was Sivalaki, I can't remember, but we're going to Cashel Street. And then we decided, no, we'll just go home and make meagering. We'll make 2-minute noodles, be cheaper, Got to look after that bank account when you're a student.
Yeah.
And so we went back and we started watching Brokeback Mountain. It's a big group of us in Otatahi House, in O House.
Mm-hmm.
Then it happened. And I just remember seeing Brokeback Mountain TV fall on the ground and everybody scrambling underneath the doorways. And I remember my friend Whitney, who was over in the flat across, run out because she'd been practicing her tap in her tap shoes, ran down the stairs outside of O House in her tap shoes. There were boys that had done ballet in the morning and they hadn't taken off their dance belts. We couldn't go back into O House. So they were literally wearing their dance belts. They didn't have proper underwear on, which I thought was just like kind of funny. But then we had a month or so off, of course, before we got to come back together, and we did that out of Impact Studios for a month or so, and that really solidified our year, but also across the whole 3 years. And our relationship with our teachers, our tutors, was so strong because of that as well.
Because you had to go through that experience together.
Yeah, it was rough. I feel like the first year was a lot of dealing with mental health and anxiety and general struggles of living in that environment, whilst also figuring out who we are as performers and learning new things. But honestly, like within my first year, because that year was a bit rough for a lot of people, and I think it also comes down to me believing in myself. I didn't want to carry on.
Right, yeah.
Because I was so fueled with depression and anxiety. I remember doing like voice, doing voice.
Yeah.
And learning that I hadn't been breathing properly, all these basic things. And I was just like, I'll never be an actor. I can't do it. I just can't. And just letting that little voice in my head just get too loud. But I'm also very stubborn, so I didn't give up.
Sure. I was going to ask, what is there something that got you through that, or is it just the fact that you're stubborn?
I think the love for performing in theatre and art and the love for the whānau that I had been a part of was too strong to let go. But also, I remember on the first day of Nasda, we all sat in a big group and Steph asked us what we wanted to do after Nasda. And I was like, I want to be a high school teacher and teach drama. That was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I had that in my head. And because I'd been teaching for a long time prior to Nasda, and I still teach. I've just been teaching for a whole year. I love teaching. But it wasn't until I did my internship through the Court Theatre and did Amadeus, which was halfway through my third year.
Yeah.
And I was in this professional environment and with professional actors and seeing what they were doing and being a part of it. And I was like, I want to be doing this. This is what I want to be doing. I want to be teaching for sure. I still want to teach. I think teaching is a wonderful thing. But to be a good teacher, I need to do this. I need to learn on the floor. I need to grow my toolbox and be able to share that with students. I want to be here. And so it wasn't actually till then, which was April of 2013, that I was like, oh, no, don't eat that. No, Max is eating the headphone wire. Max, oh, sorry. Max, if you do that, you're going to, don't you bite me.
Hey guys, Future James here. I'm sure it's pretty obvious, but if you couldn't tell, Max is a cat and was chewing on Jane's headphone wire. All right, back to the podcast.
Simon! This is not good. Not going well. Okay, here we go. Yep, see you, Max. Bye. What was I saying?
You were saying about Amadeus, and that's when you...
Yeah, that was when I was just like, wow, this is cool. This is so cool. You get to come every day to a theatre or whatever rehearsal space and be with a group of like-minded individuals who love this art form, and you get to see it all play out and you get to be a part of that conversation. And I was just like, oh, yeah. I like this. Yeah. I want to do this professionally, and I want to be an actor, and I don't care if it doesn't pay well, and I don't care if my work is very dependent on like circumstances. I don't care if I'm like jobless for ages. I just want to freaking do it. Like,
yeah.
And that was a massive change for me. Massive change.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience with Jesus Christ Superstar, which we were both in as well. That
you
like,
did?
I did. Because that was the first time outside of the Nasda thing where it's what you were saying, being with a group of like-minded people every single day, and then, you know, working towards that, creating that end product. Such a cool experience.
Yeah. And I think because we're so often told that, you know, if you're in theatre, well, good luck to you. Or any kind of arts, you know, it's going to be hard. I think it's good to say that. You know, a lot of kids, younger kids ask me, you know, what is it actually like being an actor? And I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy being a freelance artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. But it's worth it. If this is what you want to do, and if this is how you want to contribute to the world, through storytelling, through art, through creative work.
Yeah, and sure, it's difficult, but it's also so rewarding. And we're frozen. Boop doop doop. Frozen.
Frozen indeed, past James. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. So just to give you guys some context, this next part of the conversation is 4 days later. Jane had travelled from Auckland to Wellington, and we basically pick up where we left off. On the bright side, this half of the interview has much better audio because it wasn't being recorded on a Zoom call. So that's a plus. All right, here we go. Take it away, past James.
Thanks, future James.
Great.
In my findings of where we got up to, we basically did all of Nasda, except we did talk about Hair, which didn't record, which I thought was really interesting, talking about that production. So you did Hair in your third year.
Yeah,
at Nasda.
In my third year.
Yeah. We kind of talked about the nudity side of things and how that kind of broke a lot of barriers for you.
I think it broke a lot of barriers for everybody. It was really well treated from the beginning, right from the rehearsal period. So we had one rehearsal where we locked all the doors. It was Richard, Stephen and Lee in the room, and just the cast, which was year threes and second years. We had the option if we wanted to display nudity or not. Like, you could do it in your own pace. You didn't have to do it all at once. You could, you know, just do it whatever you're comfortable with. And so we're singing, and then we're taking off the clothes and disrobing, and it was so beautiful. And when we'd come to the end of the song, we just all cried, because it's very vulnerable to be nude in any situation, but also being nude with your classmates, with your friends, with your pals is quite something to experience together. So that was really special. Also, just like looking at bodies and seeing them just as bodies, I think, because we so often, especially nude bodies, sexualize them. So just to see them for what they are in all their glory and their function was so wonderful and very empowering for me to have gone through some eating disorders in the past, and then to just kind of accept my body in that space. And accept other people looking at it. Yeah, when it came to staging it, Stephen did it so tastefully with the lighting. It was just beautiful, and really took away any need for the audience to sexualize the actors, and allow the audience to really sink into what that moment is about, which was protest. So Yeah, that was really cool.
Mm.
Great thing to be a part of, and really allowed me to be more open. And for that to be in my last year of drama school,
Totally.
it's a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And then I did a great segue, and here's that segue. I'm going to try another segue here. You said there's a penis. What is your dream miscast role?
These questions, as we've already discovered, are difficult ones. For male characters, I actually had a further think about this and like how cool would it be to be a female Judas?
Yes.
We did JC together.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And actually, Shoshana Bean, they did an all-female cast in New York.
Of the whole show.
Of the whole show.
Cool.
And Shoshana Bean played Judas, and she was epic and rocked it out. I would love to do that. Like Jean Valjean as a female, amazing. Yeah. Any character from Dear Evan Hansen, Hamilton, they're kind of the ones I can think of right now that are male dominated.
Yeah. Like Hamilton, Lin-Manuel has said that it's not off the cards to do a gender swap of that, which I think would be so cool.
Yeah. I mean, and in that production itself, like there are very strong female leads, but it would be so cool to see the interpretation of those characters that have quite strong male, what's the word?
Testosterone.
Yeah, well, yeah, they've just got a lot of that. Yeah. I can't think. It's too early in the morning, and see what a female can do with that. But other than that, it would be POC characters, so people of color, that I obviously will never play because I'm white. Yeah. But it's a really weird thing when you're biracial. It's just like you think Māori, but you don't appear Māori. Yeah. So that would be cool, but I would never do that because it's not my place to tell those stories. But I always dreamed of being in Dreamgirls or Nala in The Lion King. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I can write a solo show about that.
I'm sure you will.
Potentially.
Yeah. Then we got into post Nasda, which involved you doing Playhouse with two of your best friends, Jack Marshall and Ben Freeth.
My boys.
My boys. Yeah, how was that experience?
It was glorious. It was honestly glorious. And like we were very, very lucky to be such close friends and had done 3 years of drama school together and then popped into a contract. Yeah. We knew each other inside and out, and we just went into it. We had no problems. It was fantastic. It was a great time. And I think Playhouse itself as a job for somebody coming out of drama school is, I'm not going to say vital, because that doesn't have to be a part of your path as a performer. Yeah,
but I do think everyone who has done Playhouse would say that it has been vital to their success.
Yes. It allowed me, and I'm sure that you can agree with this, allowed me to really play because you had so much time. You had 8 months and the same shows every single day.
Yeah, 3 times a day.
Yeah. To really play with the role, to play with other actors, and in the moment work on improv and just the freedom that you can find within theatre, and just really like relish in that. So that was really cool because it was something that I hadn't really had the opportunity to do yet. And also just working with different audiences and how you respond to them and how you adapt in those situations was really great. And then just learning how a small company and a touring company and everything functions when you're on the road, how all the technicalities work, I think was really great to learn because, you know, in New Zealand we have to make our own work to survive. Yeah. To learn all those nooks and crannies at such a young age, because I was only 21 at that point. I was a little baby. Yeah. Oh God, that's such a long time ago now. Oh no. Oh no. That's 6 years. Oh!
Mine was only last year and it feels like ages ago.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, and even though it is the same show 15 times a week, like it's cliche to say, but it is different every single time because every single audience is a different set of children. And you just don't know what the children are going to do.
Oh, there was this one school.
bless the little tot who was in the front row. No, she was in the second row because that's what makes the story funny. So Ben comes out as Pinocchio, and you know, Pinocchio's got that big nose that comes out.
Yeah.
Out he comes, the nose does the thing, and she just vomits, like projectile vomits onto the child in front of her and is just crying her eyes out.
Oh my God.
And just like, Ben's just like, oh, like, and like, you know, kids who had to pee and kids who want to pull at your dress when you're in the front because they don't know.
Yeah.
And then just kind of disruptive older kids who think it's cool to like say stuff during the show and ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just like slightly put them in their place.
Yeah,
which is
I kind of enjoyed those kids because it gives you a chance to do some improv and like work whatever they say into the show.
Yeah, that's true, and that's the thing. In those shows, you just seriously have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So we did Rapunzel, and I was a rapper. I was real cool. And then we did Bot Farm. Which was like based kind of loosely on Animal Farm, but with technology instead. So Big Brother-esque, very Orwellian. A lot of the kids didn't know George Orwell. They didn't know who Stalin was. They didn't understand dystopian. Unless you explained it to them like Hunger Games or like Divergent.
Yeah.
Then they were like, oh, so that's what that is.
Yeah, that's where that comes from.
Yeah. Because the high school show was always meant to be a little bit more in-depth educational as well.
Yeah.
So we had to really adapt that, and how with the kids who don't kind of really understand that, how do we translate the majority of the text in a way that is entertaining without being boring?
Yeah.
Because no, to be fair, the text was not boring at all. But for kids who just have no idea what the subjects are, it can get a little bit like, what's going on? So that was interesting in itself. Yeah. What a great time, honestly. And Michael, shout out to Michael Bell.
Michael Bell.
Who's just starting, you know, getting prepared to get on the road again for this year, which is dope.
Since we last talked, which was 4 days ago, he's posted about going on tour again.
It's just
great.
Great. New Zealand, in every way, we have just really been in the forefront of this pandemic. We're potentially going to be the first country that is going to put up theatre again.
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening.
I know. I do know, though, in South Korea, in Seoul, they have been continuing with Phantom of the Opera. Which is buzzy, that there's performers in the world who are still performing.
Yeah.
Especially in musical theatre. That's crazy to me. But we're going to be the leaders in that, and we'll discover all the technicalities with still dealing with guidelines and how we safely house audience. I know that we're in level 1, but I still think obviously there will be precautions that theatres will take.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to, you know, be able to be in the forefront of that.
Definitely.
Yay.
Hurrah. I did another segue and I can't remember what it was, but here it is.
Hey guys, so in looking for the aforementioned segue, I found out that it was not in fact a segue, it was just asking the question. So I'm going to make one up right now, and it's going to go something like, speaking of being green with sickness from a pandemic, what is your favorite role that you've played? Yep, that's the one.
And I think I said third tree on the left.
Yes.
But my other favorite character was also green, and it was Elphie. Elphaba. Elphie. Oh, so misunderstood.
So misunderstood. I think you talked about it not actually being a dream role before you got it.
Yeah. So, like, obviously it's a musical that I have always loved, but I think because it was such, you know, going to drama school and learning about all the niche musicals rather than, you know, big commercial musicals, and like getting a really broad spectrum on musical theatre, I kind of fell in love with a lot of other musicals and other characters. Because of its commercial founding, I didn't really allow myself to properly listen to what Wicked was about. And I'd read the book in high school as well, and still I didn't really allow myself to sit with it and be like, oh, wait, okay, so this is a big story about equality, about race as well.
Totally.
About bullying, about a girl basically becoming a woman within 2 acts. That's how I always looked at the character's arc. A young woman finding herself, finding her voice, and when she flies up into the sky and defying gravity, she's found her power, and that's her step into womanhood. Yeah, what a great character. I had such a journey in discovering who she was, and I was like, wow, I love this character, and actually we're very similar in nature. In the Showbiz handbook that we were given at the start of the show, it was like things to tick off, like if you're a witch, that's how you know that you're a witch. And I was like, every single thing was like,
great.
I'm a witch. Yeah, it was just a really amazing experience. It honestly did change. It did change my life in many ways.
Yeah, and then when you did get the role, you talked about there was a moment in rehearsal.
Yeah, so we're doing our first run through of Act 1. Gone through it, and it was great. Didn't have any hiccups. Did Defying Gravity, and I was just like on a box as well, eh? Like I was just standing on a box with a broom.
Yeah, I think you like stepped up onto the box for the.
Yeah, stepped up onto the box and did the thing, and then came down. And you said that everybody was clapping. I've blocked that out because I don't remember that. I just walked over, and it was like zombie brain. I walked over to the side of the rehearsal room. I crouched down and I just cried. I cried and I cried, and I remember I think Rita came over and she was hugging me, and I remember Stephen being like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? It was just a release of emotion because of the character. It was the first time I'd ever gone through that full character's arc within Act 1, and it's a roller coaster of a time emotionally. So it was a cathartic release, and then also just to have done that, I clicked in my mind and was like, I sang Wicked songs when I was in my early years of high school, you know?
Yeah.
And did them for Trinity exams, you know, did Defying Gravity, and I couldn't really belt at that point. I was like opera trained as well. Yeah. So to know how far I've come in my life, in my voice and everything, and it just kind of all came to me in that moment, and it was very emotional and awesome. What a show. And that's where we met as well.
It is.
You were my little wardrobe tin man. We had some great combos.
Yeah. I guess if you don't want to know the inner workings of theatre, skip like 30 seconds.
Well, like, should you even be listening?
Burn.
Shade.
There's a moment in the show that the character of Bok turns into the Tin Man because of something that happens. I'll let you figure that out. But the way that they do that is they have a double Tin Man hiding behind the wardrobe. Bok gets wheeled behind the wardrobe, and then we do a quick switch, and then myself as the Tin Man gets wheeled out from behind the wardrobe, and then has to mouth Bok's lines as Tom Worthington says them from behind the wardrobe.
Yes, which you did incredibly well.
Thank you.
I remember though that whole thing. It should be easy, but that wheelchair in itself was so hard to
awkward.
maneuver.
Yeah.
So awkward.
And the wardrobe wasn't that big,
good?
So we didn't actually have that much space to switch out. And the Tin Man costume is so like bulky and awkward. Anyway.
Yeah, because I remember I had to bring it on with you facing the audience enough, but not facing it enough so they can't tell that it's not Tom.
Yeah.
And there's so many technicalities in that show. Like, not only is it a massive sing and massive like acting wise, but just all the technical aspects.
Yeah.
You just have to like clock into and remember. I love that Showbiz crew, or that crew at Isaac. Shout out to Isaac Theatre Royal if you can put some money towards their fundraiser to keep the theatre up and running and going, please do.
Yeah.
Because it's an amazing space.
Future James will jump in and give a link. Take it away. There he goes.
Cheers, mate. So, since our recording, the Isaac Theatre Royal has blown past their fundraising goal with 120% of their funds raised. So I'm looking at the website now. They have raised $114,800 from their 95,000 goal with 1,289 donors. So New Zealanders came through for the Isaac Theatre Royal, which is so good to see. So happy for them. All right, back to the podcast.
So now we get into the deep stuff.
Oh,
Oh,
into the deep stuff.
jump in the deep end.
Rolling in the deep. Haven't heard that song in a while.
Showing your age.
You bitch. You sneaky bitch. Oh my gosh. Love it.
Right, okay. Maybe I'll just put in what I said because I think it was great.
Yeah, good.
I was great. Yeah, so this is what I said. I don't know why I'm pausing. We don't need to pause because I'll just cut this out.
We've talked a little bit about mental health, and one of the things that I admire about you is that you've been very open about your mental health journey and about mental health in general. Obviously, that's something that's really important to you to be open about that.
Yeah, the openness kind of came out of me and Briley Lockhart. We created a blog together, which was all about eating disorders and recovery, body positivity and self-love and mindfulness. We had a wee discussion. I had gone through eating disorders prior to her, and we had this friendship really blossomed through that connection because not many people talk about it, unfortunately, and it's very common within the creative industry, especially within actors, musical theatre, dancers. Yeah, we had this conversation. We were like, let's create something. Let's create a blog. Let's create a platform and a forum where people can read things, and if they want to communicate to us on how they felt, and just kind of end the stigma on it. So one of the biggest things for me was to end stigma towards it, but it was also holding me accountable as well at the same time, to not fall into bad habits again, to not fall into patterns, because my eating disorder spanned over like 10 years and it wasn't all really intense at times like it was in the initial beginnings.
When did it start?
When I was 13.
That's tough.
Until I was 23. So
yeah,
as I said, I wasn't fully bulimic the whole way through.
Yeah.
But I developed this unhealthy relationship with food, which then I associated with diets and heavily exercising. Still was struggling with this body dysmorphia of not really seeing my body for what it was. And you know, I still have little moments every now and again, and like due to lockdown.
Yeah.
Girl ate a lot of bacon. Bacon, actually. I did eat bacon as well, and baking. And girl put on some extra kgs, and like there was moments where I'd look at myself and I'd be like, I'd get into that, and it's very quiet now.
Yeah,
because I'm just like, oh girl, shut up, like you look fabulous. It's still there, so it's still a work in progress.
Yeah,
that's why it was so important to be held accountable.
Sure.
But then it kind of transformed into talking about everything, because it made me realize that my opinions and my voice and my message and my journey mattered. So it allowed me to open up about depression and anxiety and breaking the stigma on that too, which helped me, I think, also open up as a creative as well. Because, you know, when you have things inside of you for so long, that negative narrative and kind of sadness and struggle and trauma, it really just encompasses your whole body.
Yeah.
And the moment that you actually speak it or write it or go to counseling therapy you take a little bit off of yourself and it becomes something outer and something that you can actually see and you can analyze and you can have control of.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to talk.
Definitely.
So important.
So you went to therapy and stuff?
Yeah.
Because I think there's also a stigma around even going to therapy.
Oh, God, yeah. It's a wonderful place. Unfortunately, I wish it was funded a bit more. Hopefully we'll get there one day. Talking about it and getting advice from a professional, because you can self-analyze as much as you want. Going to doctors, yeah, you can talk about it with your doctor, but you really need somebody who focuses on mental health.
Yeah, and is specifically trained in it.
It's specifically trained and knows how to deal with it. Like, I'm on medication and honestly, I don't know what I would be without it at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay that I'm on medication. And it's just like taking something if you had a heart problem. You wouldn't not take that medication.
Yeah.
And like your brain is the most powerful organ. So it's like you really need to take care of it. To go to a psychologist or a therapist, you also not only come up with the opportunity of going on medication, but also talk about mindfulness and strategies to manage your mental health in a holistic way as well. And giving you really, really great tools that you can implement into your daily life. And just to talk, just to cordial, because somebody who's not a friend or a family member, somebody who's just completely outer, who doesn't even really know everything that's happened in your life, they can really look at what's happening in that moment for you, is really valuable.
And nowadays there are online counselling as well. There's one called BetterHelp.
Yep.
Which is a sponsor of a lot of podcasts, and BetterHelp, if you want to sponsor this podcast, do so.
I have used BetterHelp before, and BetterHelp is wonderful.
Yeah. You know, obviously there's a stigma around it, and I think those resources and those options really help with that.
And the more we talk about it, that's really important, because it's just the suicide rate in New Zealand, especially amongst young males, it's heartbreaking. It shouldn't be happening.
No.
But it is. And we need to remedy that, and we need to do everything we can to provide a safe space that isn't filled with shame, because that's the big thing. It feels very shameful when you're going through something to deal with mental health. You're not strong, you don't have control over your own brain life.
Yeah, and, you know, when you break your arm, you don't find that shameful.
No.
Some people wear it as a badge of pride.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's out of your control.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to gather control and how to deal with it. But those initial emotions that happen with depression and anxiety, and I've been reading this book, it's called The Art of Acceptance. Currently in this chapter about compassion. We can be as compassionate as we want to other people, but when it comes to being compassionate towards ourselves, we do not lead with compassion. And, it spells out ACT, which is, as it says, your secret self-compassion key. So A stands for acknowledge. So acknowledge your struggle. So when you're feeling really down, be like, oh man, this sucks for you. Like, I understand what you're going through. I'm sorry. I feel what you're feeling. This is a really sucky moment for you. And then connect. Being like, yeah, look, Jane, like a lot of people go through this. Like, you're not the only one in the world. Don't feel alone. You're not alone in this. It's okay. You have people, and people also love you, and you're going to be all right. The T stands for talk kindly to yourself. So be like, look, you'll be okay. Everything is fine, and this will pass. It'll pass because you know that you're amazing, and you'll know that you're strong. And once you go through those steps, honestly, it really calms your center.
Yeah.
And really get you out of that fight or flight mode that you experience when you're in moments of depression and anxiety and even panic attacks and stuff like that. I've been using it a bit lately, and it's been very helpful. So if that helps anybody, and so The Art and Power of Acceptance by Ashley Davis Bush.
Plugs.
Yeah.
He touched on voices mattering and also the importance of talking about everything. So that leads into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And what we talked about when we talked last was that your dad is Māori and kind of your conversations with him about what's going on at the moment.
Yeah. When it first happened, like, I called Dad and I was like, yeah, that video, I don't know, I'm just getting emotional now thinking about it. Was just so bizarre to me to see. In that moment of being like so shocked, I had to also realize that this is Black America's reality every single day.
Yeah. And
how that so needs to radically change. The institution is built upon racism.
Yeah.
And racism flows through the roots, through its veins, and sprinkles its little spores everywhere. Yeah, so I called Dad and we had a kōrero, and it was actually, I called him this one time before I went to the protest in Auckland. The night before, I was, watching some videos, as you do, on the Twitter and on the Instagram of police brutality. And I just thought, oh, what about if that was my dad and my whānau? And I just had a really good conversation with him about how he felt about the situation. And he, talked to me about how he was always treated other, not really in his early life because he grew up in Auckland and Northland. When he moved down to Ashburton, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
Small South Canterbury town, mostly farming community, mostly national right-winged conservative.
Yeah.
And existing as a Māori in that place and coming from quite an educated Māori background as well. My dad was very intellectual and he was still is a fantastic poet and writer. There's not a lot of people of colour in Ashburton.
Yeah.
And if there are, they normally get stereotyped. And he became like president of a business society, which was amazing. And although people were really stoked for him, a lot of people were also not happy about it and didn't think that he deserved it. And he basically had to almost whitewash himself to fit into society. So he stopped speaking te reo Māori. I didn't learn te reo Māori from my father. I learned it from my uncles at a young age. My dad didn't speak it in the house. He didn't really associate himself with being Māori apart from the fact that his skin was brown. Where we had to have a really full-on discussion about it and how that truly affected him and his identity as a person.
Because I can imagine with some people it would be you're like that with society and with going out. But the fact that it changed him in his core, that's just...
Because, he had to stop thinking Māori, he had to stop speaking Māori, he had to stop looking Māori as much as he could to fit into somewhere where he could be heard, where he could be respected. That really had an effect on me because obviously I recognized that and it made me think about my privilege from a very young age. And I understood from a very young age how people would look at my dad and look at me and go, hold on, is there something wrong here? Because he's brown and she's white. Are they meant to be together? Are they father and daughter? We're going to treat this guy different than we treat this little white girl. I knew very early on that my father was treated differently. There's a rational fear of people who are different.
Totally. And this is a very good example of the fact that it's not just America. It's everywhere.
It's not just America. And you can't forget that this country went through colonization. And before we had the Treaty of Waitangi, there was pillaging, there was rape. And of course, nobody wants to remember the awful history of every country's, beginnings.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to do with colonization. But right now we really need to talk about it, and we really need to talk about it within education and schooling. We learnt about the Treaty of Waitangi, but there was this big focus on this dude named James Cook being this really awesome dude and being the founder of New Zealand and created the first map, whilst Māori had travelled around Oceania, Pacific, Asia for years. and then came to Aotearoa and been living there as a civilized community for a really long, in society for a really long time. And then, you know, I want the truth to be told accurately. And that's what America is wanting right now. And I highly recommend anybody who is listening, please listen to 1619. It is a podcast. It is on every podcast streaming thing, where it follows the journey of African slaves coming to the shores of America to where we are now. Very eye-opening listening to that. So highly recommend. And make sure you also look at what is also happening in your own country as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did point out last time was that it's not your fault, which I think it's really important to remember that. And because of all the history that we've talked about, it's literally built into our society. So
it's not your fault. You can't take responsibility for what your ancestors did.
Yeah.
But you can't stay complicit. That's the biggest thing. And honestly, even though I've always been actively trying not to be racist, I have had racist thoughts.
Yeah.
And I have acted with racist attitudes, and that's not on. And I really needed to check myself, and I need to look at that and go, why was I feeling that way? Why did I have that reaction to be racist? And you really need to just go inside that little inner dialogue and like pick it apart and sit with yourself and be kind with yourself, but then act as well to acknowledge casual, as we call it, casual racism. And really, can it be casual? I don't know. But, you know, sly comments from your family members and passing jokes and full out racism that you encounter, call it out. If that person said it and said it openly, they should acknowledge that they can get some backlash on that. They've spoken it out loud. They think that they have the privilege to speak hate. Then you have the privilege to correct them. Yeah. Inspire others to be better and to act better and to inspire them to learn and to educate. That's one of the biggest things right now. Learn and educate. Yeah. Educate yourself.
If you do want to learn more about Black Lives Matter and educate yourself, then there will be links in the description for you to do so. And I will also do so, and we will also do so, and we will get better, and society will get better and brighter and more diverse. Woo!
Yes. And it's not going to happen overnight. But already, since George Floyd sadly was murdered in broad daylight, there has been huge change, and not just in America, but globally.
Yeah.
And even in the smallest of companies, really looking at how many people of color do they have?
Mm-hmm.
And why are they not hiring people of color, especially people of color in leadership roles and really high up roles in companies? Yeah. Why does that not exist there? And that is powerful. So there's a change happening. It's a revolution. It's happening. And as much as it is painful, there is also a beauty about it, because I'm hoping that when the next generations come through, they don't have to go through as much trauma and pain as what people of colour are now experiencing.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Ngā mihi. Yeah.
So now, moving into the last part, the question is, what is your Kiwi dream?
Broadway! No. Well, you know, that would be lovely. I'm a goal setter, 100%. And I'm very...
a dreamer.
Why? Dude, I'm a dreamer. I dream big. And yes, Broadway, wonderful place. That would be cool. Always had dreams of going to the West End, and then I was like, oh, London's really expensive to live in. I don't know if I want to do that. But that could still happen. And then there's like Aussie. I mean, you're over there at the moment, which I've always really wanted to break into, but for some reason the timing just is not right. And this year was going to be a time, but I'm not too sure that's going to happen now. The biggest thing is just to tell stories. And I know that is so cheesy when you say it. It's just like, oh there's an actor who wants to tell stories. But no, but seriously, I just want to tell stories, and I want to tell stories that need to be told, important stories that make difference and change. One of the things, apart from entertainment value that theatre has, it also is political. You can't deny that. And it's a way to voice stories and voices that really need to be spoken and really need to be heard and need to have discussion created around. That's a big thing for me. I have some little pocket dreams, I guess, of what I want to do here in Aotearoa. I want to learn how to direct. I want to do more writing, and I want to produce more, because I produced my first piece last year and this year, Kingdom of Cats by Albert Bells, and that was really cool. And I want to make theatre and the education, because I'm also a teacher, the education of theatre more accessible, because I've been looking into, especially to do with what's happening right now with Black Lives Matter and the privileges that we have as white people. I want to reach out to communities and schools and areas that don't have the access to things like musical theatre education and acting education, and provide that. That's some way that I can somehow bridge the gap, because I also want to see more people of colour. And there are so many people of colour who are actors, but for some reason they're not hired for things, and things get whitewashed all the time. And I'm like, Look at all these actors. Please use them. But also, allowing them to give them tools so they can create their own work and tell their own stories, because especially people of colour are storytellers. They are storytellers and have the most beautiful voices. And I would love to help facilitate that in some way. So yeah, I just want to tell stories, man, and if I can get paid whilst doing that, that's dope.
Totally.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
That's the dream.
But also, like, Broadway would be fantastic. Like, Ovi.
All that, also Broadway.
Yeah, also Broadway. Hello.
Broadway, if you're listening.
Broadway, if you're listening, I'm here.
Is that a song? Surely that's a song, Broadway, if you're listening.
Broadway, if you're listening. Well, I'm now going to write it, aren't I?
Yeah.
I can use the rest of my Tuesday to write Broadway, are you listening?
Copyright.
Copyright.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jane, for coming back again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being so patient with me and doing this again. I really appreciate it.
We can blame it on technical difficulties, James.
Or just me or the cat or I don't know.
We got it in the end.
We got it in the end, and and it was just so wonderful talking to you, and I thank you for creating these conversations and being brave and getting into the nitty-gritty. You're amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think it's really important to voice these matters and to get into what makes performers tick.
Yeah. And has it been awesome for you? Like, you're like, wow, like...
It's been so cool. Like, that's always been the inspiration for this podcast, is I have so many friends in the industry that I do a show with once and then never see them again. I want to get to know people more and find out their experiences and how they compare and contrast to my own.
You're a brilliant man. Brilliant man.
And with that, thank you for listening.
Ka kite.
We'll talk to you next week, I guess. Bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone. Thanks for enduring this very choppy episode. As I said in the episode, if you would like to learn more about Black Lives Matter, there are links in the description where you can do so. You can also follow Jane on Instagram at Jane Victoria Leonard. If you want to follow the podcast, you can find it at And Other Kiwi Dreams on all of your favourite social media sites. If you check out my stories, you may also be able to ask my guests questions, so keep an eye out for that. You can also find the podcast on the website link in the description. Join me next week as I talk to an actress who's about to release a freaking book on Broadway. And Other Kiwi Dreams.